Hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on. Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate.
Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it. Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal.
Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thanks for joining for this live broadcast for the Drydene 400 at Dover Motor Speedway. I think that's the new name of the track. Either way, Dover, the Monster Mile, Miles the Monster, which sits outside the track, is their mascot. And you will hear, if you watch the race today, Miles is hungry. And Miles was hungry at practice and ate up a couple of race cars, and some of these guys had to go to backup cars and go to the rear of the field. Lucky for us, there's a couple of decent plays here to look at. But let's take a dive in. I am in between baseball games for my son's tournament and wanted to get with you guys and talk about today's race and who I like, who I don't like, who I think might be potentially some underdogs because William Byron wrecked very early in practice and had to go to a backup car. He was probably one of the top 4 favorites to win this race. I still think potentially he has a chance to make it into the top 5, if maybe not vie for a win again. But it's going to be a tough, long day for William Byron coming from the back of the pack. That being said, I also expect William Byron's ownership to be on the really, really high side. I'm expecting ownership for William Byron to be probably 60-65%. Now, if you're playing in cash, maybe that's going to be okay. If you're playing in tournaments, you're definitely going to have to vary your lineups a little bit. So let's take a look at the track real quick. If you missed my video from Friday, we break down a lot more detail of past history with these guys. And we are at Dover Motor Speedway for the Drydene 400. The track type here is a steep, high tire wear, full concrete, intermediate track. The race length is 1 mile, 24 degrees in the turns, and the race length is 400 laps. Dominator points will be of great importance today, whereas in the past 2 races, Talladega and the Dirt Bristol race, was not what we needed. Dominator points are equal to 280, coming from 100 laps, 100 points from laps led, and 180 from fast laps. So we definitely want to hone in on at least 2 dominators, maybe even potentially a slight dominator or slight good finishing position from one of the top runners. And then the other 3 are going to be values / place differentials. And William Byron does not go into the value pick, but definitely goes into place differential because I expect more than likely he will get himself up towards the front. Now, with that being said, he's got to get through a lot of traffic, and this track is tough. Now, when I do my breakdowns, Dover is a 1 mile track, high banked concrete. It's a lot like a much larger Bristol, so we take Bristol into consideration when we're kind of getting what I get to as my power rankings for drivers for this week. We also look at Darlington. It's high speed, some high banks, eats tires up, which Dover does also. And then we also look at Miami Homestead, which has high tire wear. We like to run the high line here, and it's kind of unique. So these 4 tracks are all very unique into themselves. So I use them for comparison because there's nothing else like Dover that they run other than, I mean, probably the closest is really Bristol or Darlington, but Miami's got really high tire wear, so that one gets included. But either way, let's kind of break down into the drivers this week. Hey, if you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, make sure you hit me up in the comment section here. And if I see a comment come in after I finish my live, I will do my best to try to answer. Like I said, I am headed to a baseball game to watch my son play. So with that being said, Kyle Larson, 11,800. He was fastest in practice after 10 laps. He is starting third. So he's starting up towards the front. He was a dominator in this race last year. I expect him to probably do the same this year. But Dover, it's racing. The next gen car. These cars will be tricky, to say the least, today. And I think there's some people who have hit on setups and people who haven't. But they only practice 25 laps. I mean, these guys are going to run probably 50, 60 laps, and the tire wear is going to be very, very significant. Times are going to fall off. Pit strategies are going to start to come into play. So it's going to be hard to say, that's if they make it to a full tire run. But either way, I'm going to have about 30 to 35% of Kyle Larson, and he is fourth on my ranking. He was first going into this, but starting that close up to the front, you don't get a lot of place differential points. But I think Kyle Larson could be one of our better drivers to look at for dominating and / finishing position. Next in line, his other teammate from Hendrick Motorsports, Chase Elliott, 11,300. Chase was fastest in the 15 lap and 20 lap practice stint, and is starting fourth, just outside of Kyle Larson. Now remember last year at this race, Hendrick finished first, second, third, and fourth. Now, Alex Bowman is also starting up close to these guys, and I expect probably the same to happen. Junior Motorsports yesterday in the Xfinity Series, not that it's a huge comparison between the two, but it is a comparison to look at because Junior Motorsports has dominated at this track in the past, and Hendrick has dominated, and I think we may see the same thing today. But Chase Elliott, I've got him ranked 6 on the power ranking. I did come off a little bit on the Chase Elliott percentage. I think he's probably going to be closer to 25-30% owned. I've got him about 15 to 20% of my lineups. He finished third here last year and is starting fourth. Next in line, William Byron. We just talked about him, starting 33rd. No practice speeds because he literally wrecked his car in the first practice session. $11,000. He's very expensive. Did my best to try to figure out a way to put all three of these guys into a lineup and still have something of a decent lineup, and it's near impossible. I mean, what is that, 34,100 that you would spend on 3 drivers? That leaves you little to nothing for the other 3, so it's going to be very tough to put all 3 of these guys into a lineup, so you're going to have to kind of mix and match. I mean, I think a Kyle Larson with a William Byron, and then some of the middle pack drivers that are kind of coming up from mid-pack might be the way to go this week. But either way, I'm going to not have as much ownership as a lot of the field, which may end up costing me a little bit, but I'm going to have 30-35% ownership of William Byron, mostly because he had no practice speed, because he didn't get a chance to practice. He literally wrecked in the first lap, and we don't know anything. I mean, he could easily hit the track and be just awful and end up going a lap down and just having to fight too much for the day. So it's hard to say. So I did come off a little bit of ownership on William. Now, I never say put him in every lineup, but it's definitely something you can look at. I don't know. I still have a decent amount of ownership on William Byron. I mean, I have as much as I do for Kyle Larson, but I've got some other drivers that I am much heavier on. We'll get to them in just a minute. Make sure you hit that like button, and make sure if you have any questions, throw it up in the chat. I am kind of trying to keep an eye on it. But and afterwards, after I finish the live broadcast, I will keep an eye on it, and if you have any questions, I'll try to answer. Just remember, it's free advice, and it's what it's worth. Joey Logano, 10,600, starting 22nd. A lot of decent place differential here. Joey was a little slow on the early speed, hence why his starting spot's not the best, but he was one of the few drivers who did end up getting 25 laps of practice in, and he was the fastest. I think there was only like 2 other ones, so hence the reason why he was the fastest in 25 laps, but he was not far off from these other guys. I think he has set himself up for a long run card today. I do have him in 5 to 10% of my lineups. And next in line here, Ryan Blaney, teammates to Joey Logano at Penske, 10,300, starting 5th. Now, Ryan Blaney was second fastest in practice speeds. He did not run very many laps, but was second fastest on the time chart when we're looking at that. 12th on the power ranking, I've got Ryan at about 10 to 15% ownership. I just expect the Chevys to show up here. Now, I expected the Fords to show up at Talladega last week, and because of some carnage, that didn't really happen. But I do have Ryan Blaney at 10 to 15% ownership. Once again, if you have any questions, hit them up in the chat. Alex Bowman, 10,100, starting 6th. Alex also was 32nd in practice speeds. I think they were doing a lot of adjustments. He did not run very many practice laps, but was fairly fast for qualifying. So I think he's got a very similar setup to Chase and Kyle Larson. And I expect William Byron to also probably have that same type of setup. But I've got Alex Bowman in 30 to 35% of my lineups. I expect him to probably be 20-25% owned, so I'm a little heavy on Alex Bowman. But he did win this race last year, and in the last 5 starts here, he hasn't finished outside the top 5 but once. Martin Truex Jr., 9,800. Toyota is still struggling, and I don't know if that's going to get fixed this weekend. Now, Martin is very good here. This is kind of his hometown track. He grew up not too far from Dover. He has always typically run fairly well here, but with Toyota having some issues, I think Martin is my probably highest owned Toyota driver this weekend. He does come in ranked 2nd after practice and qualifying on the ranking systems because he's starting 18th, so we've got some PD upside potential with Martin. He was 12th fastest in practice, which isn't too bad. You know, we'll see if Martin can get himself up to the front. Like I said, I do have a decent amount of ownership on Martin. I expect him probably to come in the high teens to low 20s. Denny Hamlin, 9,500, starting 2nd. Practice speeds were 25th. I think he just had a really fast lap. And if that's the case, he's going to have a fast couple laps and then he's going to fall off. But Denny has typically run decent here, but Denny is not running well anywhere this year other than Richmond. And that was a good pit strategy by his crew chief. So I have 0% ownership of Denny. I don't like his starting spot. No real PD upside here. And I don't think he ends up running that well. You know, Denny could be my Achilles heel this weekend. If he ends up going out, dominating, and winning this race, I'm going to be a bad day, to say the least. We won't use any adjectives on how bad my day would be if Denny ends up performing really well. Kevin Harvick, 9,300 here, starting 11th. A little bit of PD upside potential here. He was 3rd fastest in practice, 5th on the power rankings. So I've got 10 to 15% ownership. He may come in a little bit higher than that, but I think Kevin Harvick could be a good quiet pick. I don't think a lot of people are going to go after him just because of where he's starting. And I think a lot of people are going to go after the Hendrick guys. So Kevin Harvick might be a good play to come off of the chalk. So I've got 10 to 15% ownership. It's probably where his ownership might come in. He might come in even in the 20s, but I'll have him in a few of my lineups. Kyle Busch, same thing I just talked about with Denny and Martin. Now, Kyle does seem to run a little bit better than the other Toyotas this year, but I mean, if Denny does well or Kyle does well, I'm not going to have a great day, and that's kind of the risk you take. You kind of have to play a little bit different of a hand than everybody else, especially if you're playing in tournaments on Draftkings. So 9,100, starting 10th. He was 24th fastest in practice. So I think his short run speed is going to be quick. Now, the nice thing about Kyle and his crew is they always seem to get the car working well by the end of the race. So Kyle could end up having a pretty decent day, which will be kind of bad deal for me, but chance you take when you try to vary your lineups and try to get into the money on tournaments at DraftKings. So I've got him in a few lineups, not many. Next in line, Tyler Reddick, 8,800. Now, I did go back and look at some of these guys in the last 3 years that have run in the Xfinity Series, and as you see over to the right, Tyler Reddick has run 2 races in the Xfinity Series and has won top 5 in both those races he finished top 20. That's not going to be as good as some of these other guys that we get down to, and there is definitely a correlation here on this next-gen car compared to how the Xfinity car drives. It doesn't have as much downforce. Now, the horsepower, the weight, and everything else is different, but there seems to be a correlation of why some of these guys like Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, and those guys are performing really, really well at the beginning of this year is because I think this car drives more similar to the Xfinity car than it does the old Cup car. So I've gone back and kind of dug into the Xfinity Series a little bit at these tracks to kind of see what they may have done. So we'll talk about those when we start to get into it. Like Austin Cindric is just dominant here in the Xfinity Series at Dover. So when we get to him, I'll definitely have some ownership. But Tyler Reddick, third on the power ranking, starting 26th, lots of PD upside potential here. He was 11th fastest in practice. I've got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. I wouldn't argue if somebody went higher than that, and Tyler could easily probably come in with a 20% ownership stake. So I may be a little off weight on the field. But Ross Chastain coming off his win last week, he's a 2-time winner so far this year, along with William Byron, the only 2 cars that have won twice this year. Ross Chastain practiced 9th, is starting 7th. I know he comes in 20th on my power rankings, but looking back at his Xfinity races here at Dover, he's raced 4 times out of the last 5 Xfinity races and has 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s. So all 4 races he's ended up finishing in the top 10. I potentially expect Ross Chastain to maybe even go after his 3rd win this year. He is on top of the moon right now with wins. He's been running well every week, and Trackhouse Racing has given him extremely fast cars, and he's also got Pitbull in the car today. So I don't know if that'll be good luck or bad luck for him. But I'll have him in 50 to 55% of my lineups. I am probably overweight on Ross. I expect him probably to come in 35% ownership. Chase Briscoe, 8,300. Power ranking of 8, mostly because of where he's starting. His practice speeds were average. I remember these guys only practiced probably 5 to 6 laps and then went out and qualified. But he has raced 4 times in the Xfinity Series, the same as Ross. He does have 1 win and 3 top 5s. So his Xfinity experience has done very well for Chase Briscoe. I'm going to have him in 50 to 55% of my lineups. I probably am going to be overweight on Chase, but I had to vary my lineups somehow if I plan on getting into the cash realm of DraftKings. His experience last year in the first time here in the Cup car was awful. He finished 35th in negative 12 DraftKings points. So there is a little caution to take Chase Briscoe, but he has been running extremely well this year and expect them to continue to do very well this weekend. Christopher Bell coming out of the Toyota camp. Same thing. I don't trust the Toyotas right now, and I just can't go. Just can't dive in on them. Plain and simple. 29th on the rankings. He practiced 14th. He's starting 17th. He's got a little PD upside potential here, but his average finish in the last 3 races in the Cup Series is 23.3. If we look at his Xfinity races, he's raced twice. He does have 1 win, but only that 1 top 5. In the other race, he didn't even finish in the top 20. I didn't dig in to find out exactly where he finished, but I was looking for races, wins, top 5s or top 10s. So Christopher Bell, I'm not going to have much ownership on Christopher Bell. Daniel Suarez, coming out of that Trackhouse stable along with Ross Chastain, has shown great speed every weekend. Just had some bad luck. I I'm crossing my fingers here that Daniel Suarez ends up having better luck this weekend. He's starting 8th. His practice speed was 15th. He runs well here for the most part. He's run 9 times. He's got 1 top 5, 5 top 10s, and 7 top 20s. He does come in 26th on the power ranking, but I'm going to go heavy on him when I think the rest of the field is probably going to overlook him. I expect him probably to have 10 to 15% ownership stake. So here's another guy that I'm going different than the chalk. 35 to 40% ownership on Daniel Suarez. So I really like Ross Chastain, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez. And there are a few more drivers here that we're going to get to that I like a lot also. Brad Kay, would not argue with anybody about Brad Kay this weekend. He runs well at this track. His practice speed, he was first in practice speeds, but that was, I think he only did like 6 laps, so hard to tell exactly. He's starting 20th, so we got some PD upside potential here. He's going to fight hard. He's going to fight, get himself to a win. He needs a win to get probably into the playoffs. But for 7,700, I don't mind his starting spot. 15th on the power ranking. I'll have him in 15 to 20% of my lineups, and I think that's kind of where he's going to land with the percentage owned and everybody else's lineups. Austin Dillon, here's another one of my favorites, so add him number 4 to my favorite drivers this weekend. And as you can see, I've got him in 55 to 60% of my lineups. He's starting 24th. He runs really well here. He's never finished in the top 5, but he, this year he's number 1, running really well. Number 2, he does run this track fairly well. If he can keep himself clean, starting 24th, lots of good PD upside potential here with Austin Dillon. And I'm going to be way overweight on Austin Dillon. So we're going to see. I've changed my strategy completely than what I've done this year. It may bite me in the backside, but I'm hoping that it doesn't. Kurt Busch, 7,500, coming out of the Toyota camp also. Practice speed was fairly quick, but he didn't run a lot of practice laps, starting 16th. So you do have a little bit of PD upside potential here with Kurt. 7,500. He does run decently here. Hasn't done so recently, but I don't know. I'm just not in love with the Toyota guys right now. Until I can trust them more, I don't think I'm going to take any deep dives on any of the Toyotas. 18th on the power ranking. I've got him in 5 to 10% of my lineups. Austin Cindric, I briefly brought him up earlier. 7,300, starting 12th. His practice speed was okay. His Xfinity experience, 5 races in the last 5 races in the Xfinity Series here at Dover, 4 top 5s and a win, and that win came last year. Austin Cindric understands and knows how to drive this track. I expect him to be a contender to win, if not be in the top 3 or top 5. He might be the best driver to give Hendrick Motorsports a run for their money. I've got him in 50 to 55% of my lineups. I think that's going to be extremely overweight than the field. I think the field's probably going to come in at 10 to 15% ownership on him. But that's the chance you take when you're trying to play Draftkings and get yourself into the money situation. So very, very heavy weight on Austin Cindric. So Austin, and if we look up here, Ross, Chase Briscoe, Daniel Suarez are all kind of the guys that I'm looking at going after. Bubba Wallace coming out of the Toyota camp, starting 9th. I think you outkicked your coverage there, Bubba. I know you had fast speed early, but I'm not going to have any ownership on Bubba Wallace. This style track just does not fit his driving style, and until he can start to show me that he can drive these mile and a half high banked type tracks other than the Talladegas, Daytonas, or the flat short tracks, don't have any interest in Bubba. I don't mind him as a driver. I think he's great at super speedways, and I think he's pretty decent at short tracks, but not this track. So I'm going to sway away from Bubba Wallace this weekend. And he was 30th in the power ranking. Same thing here with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Just too aggressive of a driver. I think he ends up burning his tires off. I don't think he outkicked his coverage, in my opinion. If he were starting 30th, I'd have some ownership of him. But starting 15th, I think that's just too high up. I think he finished. He's maybe 20th place car, so that doesn't do me or anybody that playing DraftKings any good. So I'm not going to have any ownership stake on him. There's just nothing in the data that shows Ricky's going to finish any better than 15th. So. Eric Jones, 6,800, starting 25th. I do like some Eric Jones this weekend. He has run fairly well here at Dover in the past. And so far this year, he's having a solid year. His finishes haven't quite finished, but he's always been running in the top 10 or top 5. He showed it last weekend. I mean, he almost won the Talladega race, not by a fluke. He was running super well. Petty and GMS Racing have given Eric Jones really good race cars week in and week out. They just haven't quite gotten the finishing spots that they need. Starting 25th, I think he's got a lot of potential for PD upside, and I think he could easily be a top 10 car. So 10 to 15% ownership of Eric Jones, and I wouldn't argue with anybody if they went heavier on that. Eric Almirola, 6,600, starting 27th. We've got decent PD upside here with Eric. I'm just I'm fading off of Eric. I don't have any real reason why. I mean, he has an 18.8 average finish here. He did finish 37th last year, but I don't know. I wouldn't argue if you took him in your lineup. I'm fading Eric this week. I think he's probably going to have 10 to 15% ownership. But I just, it's a gut feeling, and I wouldn't argue with anybody if they had some ownership stake in Eric with his starting spot. He's got PD upside potential. Chris Buescher, wow, was he fast at qualifying? But fast at qualifying does not make you fast for this race. I mean, it might make you fast for the first 10, 15 laps. I think Chris Buescher could easily find himself in the top 20, top 15 type scenario. I don't think he's a top 10 car by any means, which is nothing but PD downside. I hate the pole sitter unless I think they're just going to be absolute dominant at this style track. It's kind of like taking a Kyle Larson when he goes to Texas Motor Speedway or a Charlotte or next weekend at a Darlington, where the high banks, where they run the top line, the Kyle Larson line as they like to call it, and he starts up on the pole, then I'll have a decent amount of ownership. But somebody like a Chris Buescher, who, I mean, he's not a bad race car driver, and he could easily go for the pole and be a dominator, win this race, and I'm gonna get my lunch eaten if that's the case. But no interest in Chris Buescher this weekend, and good luck if you do. I just don't see where there's any benefit by running Chris Buescher this weekend. AJ Allmendinger, this just isn't AJ's style track. I mean, it's a technical track, but AJ's great at road courses. He's great at flat tracks. He's, but 6,200, starting 19th. I mean, his Xfinity Series races, he has one top 5 out of 2 out of the last 5 starts there. If you look at his total Xfinity or total Dover starts, he's raced 22 times there, but only had 4 top 10s, 9 top 20s. I mean, 50% of the time or 60% of the time he's outside the top 20. No, I don't think AJ's the route to go. I don't think he's got a good enough starting spot for me to be interested. If he were starting 28th, 29th, 30th, that would be a big maybe, because I think he finishes 25th. There's no real good PD upside here. Cole Custer, one of the last guys that I am taking a lot of weight on. Cole Custer, practice speed was his starting spot is but I tell you what, Cole Custer knows how to run this track. And I think at the end of the day, Cole Custer is a top 10 car. His average is a 10.3 over the last 3 starts at Dover. If we look at his Xfinity Series, 2 in the last 5, excuse me, 2 in the last 5 races in the Xfinity car. He's got 1 win and 2 top 5s. Cole Custer knows how to drive this track. I expect him to easily make himself into the top 10, which will be a huge PD upside win, and he's got a lot of value. You're going to need to run a Cole Custer if you plan on running a William Byron and Kyle Larson or Chase Elliott in tandem with each other. You're going to have to run some of these guys, and 6,100 starting 30th with somebody with that kind of record here at Dover, I'll take it all day long. Ty Dillon, same thing. Don't like Ty's starting spot, 14th, but he runs fairly well here. Actually doesn't really run here. But starting 14th, I don't know. I may need to come down on Ty Dillon. I haven't finalized my picks yet. I'm probably going to come off of Ty Dillon just a little bit. Other than he's 5,900, he's got good value. and I don't really. I mean, we'll take a look at these rest of these guys down here. Don't love anybody else lower than Ty Dillon. I know that there's a couple guys down here that have potential, but Ryan Priest, 5,700, starting 34th, driving the 15 car, just no interest. Justin Haley, 29th. He doesn't show me anything, even in his Xfinity series, where he's got, out of 4 races, he's got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s. Starting 29th, he's got some PD upside potential. Maybe I throw Justin Haley in for a few Ty Dillon spots. So maybe that's a way to come down a little bit on the Ty Dillon ownership. I think that's probably what I may end up doing, because I haven't finished on lineups. But Todd Gillen, he wrecked 2 laps in, 1 lap in to his practice session, ended up having to do repairs to his car, so he didn't take a qualifying spot, starting 34th. Doesn't have any experience here. He just, I mean, I've got him in 5 to 10% because I think he finishes maybe top 25. He might get himself up to 25th, but with not knowing this track, not knowing this car, he's going to have to rely on all of his simulator work. I've got him in a few lineups, but not many. Michael McDowell, no interest here. He's starting 29th. His average finishing spot is 24.5. Out of 21 starts here total, he's got 2 top 20s. No interest in Michael McDowell. Not his style track. Harrison Burton, we don't have a whole lot of information other than his Xfinity starts, where he started 4 times. He's got 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s. Starting 35th, lots of PD upside potential here for Harrison. He's going to end up having a decent car. It's coming out of the Woods Brothers, which is partnered up with Penske. So I will have some ownership of Harrison. And from here on down, I have no interest in these guys. Corey LaJoie, he's qualified 21st. He outkicked his coverage. Cody Ware starting 28th. I think he outkicked his coverage. I think he's 33rd to 36th place car. Josh Bilicki destroyed his primary car and went to a backup, starting 36. No interest there. And last but not least, BJ McLeod starting 32nd. I think that's where he finishes. He might finish 30th. No interest there. Either way, optimal lineups in the past, we've seen 2 dominators, 3 place differentials, 2 value picks, and 3 finishers for last year's race. Alex Bowman finished first. As we can see here, we start looking at all these starting lineups. I mean, 4th, 16th, 8th, 35th, 30th, 24th. Then in the shortened second Dover race, nobody started in the top 10 and ended up making it. 1 dominator, 4 place differentials. So, you know, nobody started from the pole. Well, actually, Denny Hamlin started from the pole in the 2019 fall race and ended up making the optimal lineup. But I would have expected that then. We had the data to show that Denny Hamlin was going to probably be the fastest car. Also in 2019, they practiced for an hour. We had great practice data to go off of. They weren't guessing on a new car. They'd run that car for 7 or 8 years. So maybe then I probably may have taken Denny Hamlin. But either way, that's kind of what we look at when we're looking at optimal lineups from previous years. Here's who I'm kind of targeting. I'm looking at least 2 to 3 place differential guys. William Byron is going to be the top of the charts for that, finishing as well as he does here, running that Hendricks car, starting 33rd. Lots of PD upside here. Martin Truex, Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, Joey Logano, all kind of starting towards the rear. Cole Custer, Austin Dillon, Ty Dillon, any of those guys are going to be our place differential guys. You're going to have to mix and match, find some value in there to get to these dominators, which, I mean, any of the Hendrick guys, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, all starting top 6. Ryan Blaney has been running really well this year. Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin. Don't love the Denny Hamlin pick, so scratch that one. But finishing potential, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch could easily get themselves top 5 finishes, along with Ryan Blaney and Brad Kay. Wouldn't be opposed to anybody taking any of those guys. And for value, I love Austin Cindric. Don't love Eric Almirola, even though I do have him ranked 16th. That's just a personal pick. But for a value pick, I think he's got decent PD upside. and wouldn't argue with you. Maybe if I can fit some Eric Amarola compared to Ty Dillon, they're $700 apart. I don't know if I've got that much room in my lineups, but Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton, both starting near to dead last. I think they get themselves into potentially a top 25 range. Justin Haley, Ryan Preece are also value. But that's kind of what I've got. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. Let me know that you're out there. And if you have any questions, make sure you hit me up. About ready to come off this so I can go back and catch my son's baseball game, which starts in 15 minutes. Not sure I'm going to make it on time. But either way, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching my Friday video. Hit that like, subscribe button. Have a great weekend. Hopefully the rain holds off for today and you win some money or win your fantasy. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around at the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah.
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal.
Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys.
Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.